What I want to cover here is this folder pane. Also, I call it the navigation pane. Well, technically, down below it's the navigation because you can go from one item, like the mail folder with all the messages in that mail folder that's in the inbox as a draft, a sent item, and so on, to the calendar that when you click on it, up here in the folder pane, I've got one folder. In other words, one calendar. I can create additional calendars. When I do, it'll be its own folder. So I can have my business calendar, my personal calendar, two separate folders, two separate ones that I can select that will bring up the calendar over to the right. And then I've got the contacts. When I select that, you'll get the default contacts folder, but I created an additional one for my personal contacts, which I'll show you how to do when we work on contacts. And then you've got your tasks, and then for additional items, click on the More button, the three dots, and you can look at shortcuts, folders, notes, and, well, navigation options, which we'll go over in just a minute. Let me click off and go back to the mail folder. And I want to cover the options that you have with this folder pane. One option is that you can minimize it by clicking on that little arrow. When you do that, you get more space horizontally. And over here, it doesn't list everything or all the folders within that folder pane. I mean, we had a lot more than what you see here. So what is it showing? It's showing what's in the favorites. So when I want to click on it to expand it, it expands temporarily because you get the push pin, and that's not pushed in, so it's not going to stay up. That when I click off of it, it minimizes itself again. So click on it to open it up, and you can see it's just showing these three here, which if you want to customize that, let's go ahead and push it in so it can stay up. And if I want to add something else to the favorites, you can just come down below, select like drafts, click and drag it and put it up here. And then when it's up there, you can click and drag and move it around to reorganize your favorites. Okay, it's kind of ghosting on me. Let's go ahead and move that up. There you go. Okay, that works. And so that's one way that you can add to your favorites. And if you want to remove like the drafts from the favorites or any other folder, right click on it and go down to remove from favorites. And it disappears, well, from your favorites, but not from the actual data file itself. As you can see, it's right there. Now, if you don't like the favorites because, well, all of your folders here in the mail folder are your favorites, then you can collapse it. And if you're like, no, that still bugs me, I don't want to see the favorites at all. Alrighty, let's kick it up. Let's come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Layout group, and then click on Folder Pane, and let's uncheck Favorites. And it's gone. Let me go ahead and go back and see what other options we get with the folder pane. You can have it minimized, which is back to where we were when I minimized it by clicking on that little arrow. So I can click on it and then pin it. And then we can come back up here, click on it, and actually turn it off. And when you do that, it's like, oh my goodness, how do I navigate to the other folders like the calendar, the contacts? Oopsie doodle. Well, let's go ahead and come back up here and click on it and say that we do want to, well, let's do it normal and bring it back up pinned in. And I do want to see my favorites. I like my favorites. So let's click on Folder Pane and check Favorites. And then I want to expand that. And then come back up here, click on Folder Pane. And let's take a look at the options here. So the navigation pane options, when you click on it, it opens up the same window that, let me close out. If you clicked on the More button, right there, navigation options, there you go. Same window. Different place to open it up. Depends on what neck of the woods you're in. If you're on the View tab and you're up here, then go ahead and just pop it open. If you're not on the View tab and you don't want to take those extra clicks, well, it's right there. Just click on it and go to Navigation Options. So first of all, the maximum number of visible items is talking about the items in the navigation pane down below, not the folder pane up above. So that's more technically accurate. Folder pane, navigation pane. So you can expand that or minimize that and go down to 3 and click Okie dokie, and then it disappears. So to be able to see the tasks, I have to click on it, and there's the tasks. Oh, that's not doing it for me. Let me click on Navigation Options again, and let's go back up to 4. Now the compact navigation is an icon mode that if I uncheck that and click OK, it's going to go from icons to huge letters. So it's spelled out for you. This is the mail folder, that's the calendar, and you can't miss it because you got so much space to click on it as opposed to those teeny tiny little icons. And then you can click on the More here and go to Navigation Options, and well, we can go back to compact. So we can get a little bit more space. And you can display it in this order. Well, there's the mail first. If you want calendar first, select it and move it up and click OK. So it goes back to the icons. But instead of the mail folder being first, I now have the calendar. If that's the most important thing in your daily activities that you want to order of operation, have that there. But then again, you have to move all the way over here to click on it, so it may be easier to have the calendar over to the right-hand side, or click on it. Navigation options, my final demonstration is to go ahead and let's go up to, I'm just going to move that up. Total is 7, click OK. And it can't show it because, let me hover over the split bar between the folder pane and the main view and click and drag, and then it starts popping open. So without expanding that, I wouldn't be able to see the rest, but in any case, you can click on it, navigation options, and if you made a lot of changes and you're like, okay, what was it before I did all these changes? Click reset, and it goes back to the way it was, and then you can go ahead and click OK, and we're good. The To-Do bar is like the folder pane, except it's displayed over to the right-hand side, and it's used to show calendar appointments, meetings, or tasks that are coming due, and also people. So in other words, when I'm in the mail folder view, I can pull up those appointments, meetings, tasks, and people without leaving it to go to the calendar, the people, and the tasks. So to be able to bring up the To-Do bar, come up here and click on the View tab, go to the Layout group, and there it is, To Do. Click on it, and let's go ahead and take a look at the calendar first. Select it, and give it a second while it refreshes. And if there's anything coming due in the next 7 days, it'll display it here. If not, it'll say there's nothing coming up in the next 7 days. So this is coming up Wednesday the 28th. Select it, and there you go. It's the company potluck party. Oh, that's fun. So you can go ahead and double click to open it up, this coming appointment. And you can see down below in the notes, company will provide the bouncy houses for the kids. Oh, isn't that fun? And then the time, the date, we'll talk about appointments later on. You can set a reminder. But let's keep it simple, close out. So now you know that in the calendar, it'll show you what's coming up in the next 7 days. And you don't have to wait. You can go ahead and click and advance to the next month and select a date that has something scheduled on it to see if there's anything scheduled for it. Let's go ahead and go back. Not only does it work for the future, but also the past, like on the 9th. What did we do there? Oh, we did ghost hunting. That's right. And it goes from Friday night, starting at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. on Saturday, February the 10th. So if I double click on it, it's a reoccurring appointment, which happens every Friday. So I can open up just this particular one or the entire series and then click OK. And you can see there it occurs every Friday. It started January 19th, 2018. And it went to February 9th, and from 8 to 5. So 8 p.m. Friday night to 5 a.m. Saturday morning. So I can come down in here, type in some notes, and then when I'm done, come up and click Save. I'm just going to go ahead and close out. And of course, we'll talk about how to create meetings and appointments later on. This is just to give you an idea of the purpose of the To-Do bar and see if that's going to be helpful for you. And well, we got Valentine's Day. That's great. Let's go ahead and come back up here, click on To-Do bar again, and let's do tasks. Let's select that. Then down below, I can type in a new task and create one, or if there's any that's coming up, well, apple picking. Oh, that's fun. Let's double click and see when that's coming. And that's, oh, okay, that's September 1st of 2018. Okay, we got a ways to go. And down below the notes, it was an email message. Okay, let's go ahead and close out of that. And then finally, let's come back up here, click on the View tab, go to the Layout group, To-Do bar, we have people. So let's go ahead and select that, and it's showing our favorite people. And I don't have any favorites, so how do I add them to my favorites To-Do bar? It says right-click a person anywhere in Office to add them to your favorites. Okay, let's see how that works. Let me go to my Contacts folder, and there's my favorite, Carrie. So to add her to the favorites, when I right-click, I don't get that option. I don't because up here on the Home tab in the current view, I'm in the business card mode. I have to select people. So go ahead and select people. And then when you right-click on Carrie, there you go, you get the favorites. So go ahead and left-click to add to favorites. So when I go back to my mail folder with the To-Do bar, give it a second, and there she is. So I can right-click on her to get some, okay, it's kind of bunched up down in the lower right-hand corner. I want some more space. Let me click off. And let's go ahead and close out of these, like the task. Click on it and it removes. Or, you can come up here, click on the View tab. go to the to-do bar and uncheck like calendar, so I just have people. And you can have tons of favorites, so instead of scrolling through all of them, you can type in to pull up the person that you want. And you can hover over it, and you can click to send her an email message. You got more options here, which opens up the contact card. So there's her contact information, which you can close out of here, and also right-click and edit the contact or open the contact card. So left-click, there's the contact card. And let me click off and right-click so I can go back up. To remove from favorites? No. Let's go ahead and edit. Pops open, and I can just click in the fields, make the changes. When I'm done, click Save. If I don't click Save and click Cancel, I'm back to the contact card. And if I actually want to open up her Outlook contact, which is the source coming from the contacts folder, where it has all those fields than just the basics here, go ahead and click on the link, and it opens it up completely, the contact itself with all the details, including additional details here that we'll cover in a later training video. So there's the notes, the business phone, mobile phone, address, and a contact that she's linked to, Mr. Humphreys. Great. Let's go ahead and close out. And then if you want to turn this off, you can, go ahead and click on the X to remove it, or click on the drop-down arrow and just say off. An email conversation is a dialogue between two or more people. So for example, I got this email from Carrie, new ghost investigation. When I reply to that, and then she replies to my reply, and I reply to her reply, we got this email conversation going about that subject. You can imagine that you may get other emails in between that conversation that may have that conversation broken up between several dozens, maybe hundreds of emails within the inbox. Well, to overcome that, if you want to find one particular point in the conversation to reply to without having to scroll to find the different conversations that are broken up through the inbox, you can instead go to the conversation view. And in that view, it'll display messages that share the same subject in a thread or that series of replies. So let's go ahead and light this candle so I can show you what the conversation will do and how powerful it can be to group everything in that conversation under one subject. Let's create our own conversation with Carrie. And I'll do that by double-clicking a blank area to open up a new email message. And let me type in her email address, there we go, KH for K Heffernan. Hit the tab key, then hit the tab key several more times to get to the subject. And I'll type in hi. I want to keep it simple. Hit the tab key and hi. How are you? Let's go ahead and send that off and have her reply to that. Okay, now let me come up here and click on Send and Receive to receive her response. And there you go, RE in regards or replying to my subject, hi, that I sent to her. Double click. Good, how are you? Okay, let's go ahead and reply to that and say good. And then click Send. And then I'll have her reply to that. Let me close out of that. Come back up here, click on Send and Receive. And then there's her reply. Same conversation, same subject, hi, double click. Then we're all good. Okay, let's go ahead and click on reply. Oh goody, and then click send. Now what I'm going to do here, let me close out of that, is instead of having her reply to that, well, in the same conversation, I'll have her send me an entirely new subject to break up the conversation, and then have her reply back into the conversation of hi. So I can show you the power behind the conversation view when you have this conversation going and it's broken up by other email messages, how you can group it all under one. So let me go ahead and have her send an entirely new email message, well, different subject, and she's very fast. Let me click Send and Receive. And there we go. Ghost hunting invite at the amusement park, ... Well, if you hover over it, you get the pop-up and it expands and it says Lagoon. Great. Okay, let me go ahead and have her now reply to my reply so she can come back into the conversation after this other email she sent me. And then I come up here, click on Send and Receive. And there we go. Double click. Oh, good gravy. Oh, I agree. Let's end this. Let's go ahead and close out. Now that we have it broken up, I can show you the conversation view, how it's going to take this conversation that has the same subject in a thread in a series of replies and group it into one. So I don't have to scroll throughout the inbox to be able to sort through all the different replies to be able to reply or respond at one point, but just go to one and be able to expand it to see the series of replies or keep it collapsed and just go to the latest here. But to have them grouped, come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Messages group, and check Show as Conversations. When you check it, it says, do you want to have this applied to all mailboxes or just this folder? Well, these are all other folders. They're not mailboxes. The only mailbox is the inbox. And what it means by that is that you can create a subfolder within the inbox, so you can apply to the subfolders of the inbox. And since we haven't learned how to create additional folders, we'll do that in a later training video. But for right now, let's go ahead and keep it simple and say just this folder only. Now when I do that, it's going to take this conversation and a series of replies regarding hi and group it under one. So click this folder, and there you go, only one. All the other hi's have disappeared. So you can double click on this one to get the latest response in the conversation, which you could have done with the latest hi and not having to, check Show as Conversations and group it. But you can also, as you can see when you hover over the little arrow there, latest message shown, expand to see previous. It's all there. Click on that little angle to expand, and it's not scattered throughout the inbox. And in addition to that, you also get a copy of your replies that come over from the sent items. Do you remember in earlier training videos I talked about that every time you send an email off as an original email, a reply, or a forward, it makes a copy of it, stores it over in the sent items? Well, that's where it's coming from. That's where it's showing. So when I double click at the bottom here, okay, there's my first response. I mean, that's my original message. That's her reply, but that's my actual first response regarding her reply. Close out, and then double click on Carrie. That's her initial reply. Good, how are you? And then I can come back to mine, climbing up the ladder. Oh, goody, and then close out, and all the other previous ones, then double click. Then we're all good. And then the latest is going to be up at the top here. Double click on that. And that was from her, oh good gravy, and close out. And then this one, well, you could double click on it, but you can't while it's expanded, because if you do, it'll collapse it. So if I double click, it collapses it, but if I double click again, it's like double clicking underneath when it's expanded, that message, it's right underneath it, right below it, to get the latest. So you can do that, but only if it's collapsed. And you do get conversation settings, the options here. You can click on the drop down arrow. By default, show messages from other folders, which was the sent items folder, and show senders above the subject. And then always expand selected conversation, which means, well, I collapsed it, but it's always expanded. I don't want to do that. And use classic indented view. It doesn't look good to me, so I'll leave that alone. But that's up to you. It's your flavor. Let me go ahead and click off. And then, of course, to undo this, just uncheck it. And we just did it to this folder, so let's undo this from this folder and click this folder, and we're back to where we were, where our conversation is broken up by the ghost hunting invite. Now, if you take one of these and you delete it, throw it to the trash can, and you come back up here to show conversations again, and to this folder, okay, there's another conversation, and that brings up a good point. Some of these things you won't see unless you select it, and then you can expand it. Now, if you can click on it, there you go. There's that mini conversation. So go ahead and select the line item and see if you get an arrow there, because these aren't automatically popping up until you actually select it. In any case, go ahead and expand it. Click on it a few times if you can get right on there. And it's not including what I deleted into the garbage can, because what gets thrown in there, not even Superman can look inside because it's surrounded by lead. In other words, Outlook is saying, what you throw in here, I'm not going to look in there. Even when it comes to searching throughout the entire Outlook program for like a contact, a calendar, if it's in the garbage can, it's like, why would I look in there? You threw it in there. I don't want to waste time looking in there. But what you can do is you can go into the garbage can and you can search out. So if I select this one that we deleted from the conversation and I say show as conversations and I say this folder and I expand it, let me click on it a couple of times. Oh, I got to get right on there. See, it shows everything. So when you're in the garbage can, it'll search out and search all the other folders that are within the mail folder here, as opposed to when you're on the outside in the inbox or any of the other folders but the garbage can, it won't search there. So let's go ahead and uncheck that and not apply it to this folder. Go back to our inbox. Oh, it's freaking out now and it reset my settings for the inbox. So let's go ahead and, well, let's uncheck this and not have it apply to this folder. And okay, now we're back to where we were. And just before I did that, you notice how it was grouping the email messages by day, by week, by month. Well, that's a view setting that you can come up here and click on the View tab in the current view group, View Settings, and you can click on Group By and uncheck Automatically Group According to Arrangement. And when you click OK there, I'm going to click Cancel. It doesn't group it by day or what messages you received last week or last month, and so on. And we'll talk about the view settings in a later training video. As you recall in the previous training video, an email conversation is a dialogue between two or more people. And so when I open up Apple Picking, for example, Carrie sent this off and included Mr. Humphreys, carbon copied. Let's say that Mr. Humphreys no longer cares about this, and Carrie and I are just having a heyday, replying back and forth going, ooh, I like Fuji apples, ooh, I like Autumn Crisp apples. And he's like, ooh, I don't really care. So what he can do is he can either go ahead and click on reply and say, Carrie, please don't include me anymore in this conversation and remove me from the carbon copy. He can do that, or he can ignore the conversation. And what that feature does is it automatically takes any replies to this particular subject, the series of replies in a thread, and automatically dumps them over into the deleted items folder. So that way you have a copy of it. It's just that it's not junking up your inbox. And so to go ahead and ignore the conversation, well, let's go ahead and close out of here. And plus, you may come across as being rude if you reply and say, hey, stop it. Instead, you can just have it bypass the inbox, go right to the deleted items. And to do that, well, here's a conversation going on that we can ignore, the hi conversation, that all you have to do to ignore it is select one of them, anyone, and then either right-click on it and go down to Ignore, or with it selected here, you can come up here on the Home tab and go to the Delete group, and it's right there. Ignore conversation, or you can use Control-Delete. And you can see in the pop-up, it's going to move the current and future messages in the selected conversation to the deleted items folder. Click on Ignore. Now when I click on Ignore Conversation, it's going to take everything in that conversation in my inbox and dump it right into the garbage can. Ignore, and it all goes. Oh, that was magical. Let's go ahead and go to the deleted items, and it's all sitting right there. Now, if at some future point you meet up with somebody at the water cooler and they're like, hey man, like, are you ignoring us? We included you in all these messages and we haven't heard back from you. Well, what you can do is if you want to go back to the conversation, you can go ahead and right click on any one of these and go down and deselect ignore. You can see when I hover off of it, it's highlighted. So when I deselect it, I can say stop ignoring. So click on it and it takes everything and dumps it right back into the inbox. Now you can do it that way, but if you got a huge conversation and you don't want 50,000 messages in that conversation automatically populating your inbox, here's a workaround. Let me go ahead and right click on one, and let's go back to ignoring and ignore conversation, and instead go back to the deleted items folder. And what you can do is just simply take the latest in the conversation and click and drag it back to the inbox. The moment you do that, it does the unignore or stops ignoring. So go back to the inbox, and there it is. You got the latest, double click, and you can see the latest in the reply of the conversation. You don't have to have 50,000 email messages. Well, I just had a few here junking up your inbox, but just the most recent. You unignored it. You can go ahead and address whatever's in there and reply and say, hey, I'm back, everybody. And you can see that with it highlighted in the delete group, it's not highlighted there because it's no longer being ignored, just by simply clicking and dragging one of them from the deleted items folder back into the inbox. And you can right click and you can see it's not highlighted, the ignore up above as well. Now I've got a quick way that you can clean up an email conversation, like when you get back from vacation and you find your inbox filled up with the casualties of replies that some have included you in on. Like, well, we got this hi conversation going. If that's been going on 50,000 times and I get all these hi's here, well, instead of selecting each one at a time and, well, hitting the delete key on the keyboard or clicking and dragging it to the deleted items, instead I can go ahead with one of these selected in the conversation and come up here on the Home tab to the Delete group and click on this guy right here. Clean up. Go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow and you get 3 choices. You can clean up the conversation, which, as it says in the pop-up, remove redundant messages in the selected conversation. So select any one of these in that conversation, like the hi conversation. Or you can clean up the entire folder, which is the inbox. So all conversations that are in there, not just the hi, but if I had a conversation with apple picking and I got, 100 apple picking replies back and forth, it'll clean up that as well. Again, all conversations within the folder. And then you can do it to also subfolders. So if I had a folder within a folder in the inbox, a subfolder, it would dig down there and clean that folder out as well. So with it selected here, when I go ahead and click on Clean Up Conversation, it takes all the messages in the conversation, and in this case, hi, and just leaves me with the latest one in that conversation. So when I click on it, and it says all redundant messages will be moved to the deleted items folder. That's the setting. If you want to change the setting, then click on Settings. Takes you backstage, goes to the Mail tab, and then you can come over here and scroll down and go to Conversation Cleanup. And you can say, cleaned up items will go to this folder instead of, by default, going to the deleted items folder. So you can click on Browse and choose another folder. We haven't talked about how to create a new folder, but you can click on New and create a folder if you'd like. But just make sure that if you do it here without any training on it, it'll create it with whatever you have selected. So it'd be a subfolder to the garbage can. If you want to add the same level of all these, then select Outlook Data File and Create New. I digress. We'll cover that later. Click Cancel. And there's the other options. Like when cleaning subfolders, recreate the folder hierarchy in the destination folder. Or don't move unread messages. So you can check that. In any case, choose your flavor, what works best for you. I'm going to click Cancel and leave it as is and say Cleanup. So it moved those other two messages, the redundant messages, and left me with the latest message in the conversation, so I could double click and get everything within that email message of all the replies going back and forth, and close out. Then go to the deleted items folder, and there they are sitting right there, the redundant messages. And of course, if you want to change those settings, let me go back to the inbox, and you don't want to come up here and click on the cleanup conversation to be able to get those settings. Remember, it's backstage, so if I click on cleanup, I could do it here and go backstage. That may be fast. And click Cancel and not actually do any more cleanup because I've already did it. You can click on the File tab, go down to Options, and then select the Mail tab, and then you can scroll down to do your conversation cleanup right there. So one of two ways to be able to get to this point and change the settings. Let me go ahead and click Cancel. And then last but not least, if you want to be able to take a certain conversation that you're included in on and always move that to another folder, like you have another folder down here called Apple Picking, then I can go ahead and, with that conversation selected, come up here on the Home tab, go to the Move group, click on the Move drop-down arrow, and all the way at the bottom, always move messages in this conversation. And you can see in the pop-up, move current and future messages in the selected conversation to a different folder. When I click on that, it opens up, you select the folder, click OK, and it will take all new messages as soon as it comes in and go, whoopsie doodle, not in the inbox, let's go to that other folder. And so you want to keep that in mind. And you'll be able to find out if there are any new messages, because if they're unread, remember, there'll be a number next to it. So if you have a folder called Apple Picking and you've got 1, 2, 3, whatever number, that means, you got a new message that you haven't read yet. Anytime you're in a folder view where you get the headers, like the headings for my inbox, the messages down below, who it's from, the subject received, and so on, I want to show you how you can sort those headers, and in this case the messages, so it can be sorted by, the defaults received, but sort it by other column headers, either ascending or descending, or you can group them or ungroup them, and as well as how to add and remove columns, because if you don't use like the size column, and it's just taking up valuable space, I can show you how to remove it, as well as add additional columns that aren't available that you don't see here. You may find one of interest, but we'll go over that in just a minute. So first of all, let's go ahead and do the sorting. Anytime you see a column with an arrow pointing down, that means it's sorting, in this case, all these email messages by the received column when we receive the messages descendingly. So arrow down is descending, which means if it's sorting it alphabetically, it's going to go from the lower end of the alphabet Z's all the way up to the A's. If it's numbers, it goes from the larger number all the way down to the smallest number. So if I want to flip that, and in this case, it's sorting by the most recent email message to the older ones, and I want to be able to flip that to go to the older ones down to the most recent, just click on it and it flips the arrow. And now I have the older messages down to the most recent. And if I want to sort it by size, go ahead and click on it. And the default when you click on it is descending, so it goes from, well, in this case, the numbers, from largest to smallest. Now, if you can't see this being sorted by size, it's because the column is too small and it can't display that arrow. Just go ahead and hover over in between the two column headers until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then just go ahead and click and drag it out, or you can double click to do what's called a best fit, so it fits everything within the column to the largest within the column, which includes the size and the drop down arrow, the sort by. So now we can see it. You can do it that way just by clicking and sorting by subject, received, back to where we started, or you can come up here and click on the View tab, because when it comes to looking at our views and customizing it, that makes sense, View. And you can come to the Arrangement group, and you get the option to reverse the sort, but there's no sense in telling you that because you already know how to do it just by clicking on that column header again. But if you don't have the column headers and the options available, well, go ahead and reverse it, and it flips it, reverse it back, and we're back to where we started. You can also click on the Arrange By, click on the drop-down arrow. Right now it's by date, which is received. I can do it by subject, and you can see the arrows pointing up, so it's ascending, the A's all the way down to, well, the RE's don't count. It looks at the subject, not at the reply here, and down to, well, S, then T's. And you can click on the drop-down arrow, and if you want to do what's called a consecutive sort, you can come down here and click on View Settings, or you can come up here on the same tab, but in a different group. You get the same feature there, View Settings. In any case, both will open up the window where we can do what's called consecutive sorts. So in other words, if I want to be able to sort more than one column at the same time, I can't do it by clicking on one because it updates to the other. So to do two or more, then either, like I said, click on the Arrange, go down to View Settings, or just come over here. Let me click off and click on View Settings. And in the Advanced View Setting window, you can click on, there you go, Sort. And you can see it's set up to the date or the received column descendingly. Click on it, and you can flip it here, go ascending, but hey, you can just go ahead and click on the column header, and it does ascending. So after you sort it by that, you can then sort it by another column. What I'm going to do here is change that and say I want to be able to sort by, scroll down, and obviously there's more items to sort than what I see within the window, so I just need to find out the one that I have in the window that I want to sort by, and it was by subject. So that's ascending. So it's going to take my conversation that had all those highs in it, and when it sorts them, all the H's will be together, you know, the high conversation. And then after it sorts them and it's got all those together or grouped together because of the sort, then I can say once it's sorted together, let's go ahead and do it by received, and let's do descending. So that way, in that conversation, I'll have it going from the most recent message in the conversation to the oldest. So let's go ahead and click OK, and now I got two arrows, one for the subject, one for the received. But it's first going to sort by subject, and so it groups all the H's together. And within that group, then it's going to sort by when it's received, and it's going to be descending. So you got the arrow pointing down as opposed to the arrow pointing up, ascendingly, you know, A's to Z's. Well, now, within this group right here, after it sorts it and groups it together, it comes over here and it says, okay, with this conversation, or those emails that have the same subject, then you can see that there's the most recent, 252, and then it goes down to older ones, or messages that I received earlier, and this is the latest here. And then to go ahead and reset this and clear this out, well, you can just go ahead and click on one, and it clears out the consecutive sorts or additional sorts. So we're now just back to one. And then next, how about grouping? Because by default, it's going to be grouped. Let me show you. You can come up here, click on Arrange By, and go down to Show in Groups. When I select that, it groups them by today, Thursday, Wednesday, the days of the week until it gets to whatever happened last week. And then anything older than that, whatever happened last month, and so on. So if I want to go ahead and ungroup that, these groups are kind of fun because you can collapse it and say, well, I want last week in there, but I don't want to see it. And then you can go ahead and expand it. So to go ahead and clear it, come up here, click on Arrange By, and just uncheck Show in Groups. Now, you can find a shortcut if you're not on the View tab to be able to get up the view settings. Like if you're on the Home tab and you're like, I don't want to come up here. You don't have to. If you want to go ahead and right-click anywhere on one of the column headers, right-click on it, and you get your Arrange By to sort it. You can also reverse the sort, remove the column, which we'll go over in just a minute, and then you got your view settings as well. Click on that, where we can go ahead and Well, you got your group by, click on it, and by default that will be checked, and it'll go back to what we saw before when it had it grouped by the email messages for today, then the days of the week, and then last week and last month. And you can get more particular if you want to be able to group the items by subject. Show field in view ascending, click OK, and now it's got all the highs together, and well, that's the only thing that has the same subject. Otherwise, it's broken up into all its own subjects. I'm like, oh, that's a mess. Well, let's go ahead and clean this up. I'm going to come up here and I can right click on it. Again, one of the headers, go down to View Settings, and then click on Group By, and then just click Clear All. And so it's got it to none. When I click OK, we're back to where we started. And then to add or remove columns, well, we can come back up here and click on the View tab, and go to the current view, click on View Settings, and you get the column option. Click on columns and you can add them over here to show to the ones that are being shown here. Click cancel, or you can come up here on the View tab, go to the arrangement group and click Add Columns, and it brings up the same window. So you got a list of the most frequently used fields down below. Choose what you want, go ahead and add it over to the right. How about due date? Click Add, and if I want to get rid of like maybe the importance, which is up here, it's got the exclamation point, select it, click remove, click OK. The exclamation point's been removed, the importance. And then the due date over here, well, you can barely see it, it's squished up, but you can hover in between the two column headers and click and drag to give it more room or shrink it up just a little bit. You can also just click on the column header and drag it down. When you see the X, let go and it gets rid of it. And then if you made a bunch of changes and you're like, oh, I'd rather reset the whole entire view, well, up here on the View tab in the current view, click on Reset View. Are you sure you want to reset this to its original settings? Yes. And okay, it resets everything. So now I have the reading pane turned on, so I can click on the reading pane, turn it off, and then click on Arrange and don't show it in groups. A couple extra clicks, and I'm back to where we started. Of course, by the same token, not only can you click and drag them off, but you can also click and drag them around and put it in between to rearrange the order. But you could have done that when you clicked on Add Columns, and it's kind of ghosting out a little bit and getting some residual effects. So Categories is right there, and I can go ahead and move it down back to where it was and click OK, and it moves back. As you saw in earlier training videos, like in the email conversation video or those other videos where we sent and received email messages, that when I received an email message, down below I got this message arrival pop-up. Well, you can control that, or you can change the settings of it. To do that, come up here, click on the File tab, go backstage down to Options, select the Mail tab, and then go ahead and scroll down to Message Arrival. Now when the message arrives, you can have it play a sound. Well, of course, if you have your speakers hooked up, you can briefly change the mouse pointer, show an envelope icon in the taskbar, which will be down here with a little envelope saying, hey, you got a new message. And by default, it'll display a desktop alert, and that alert, you can change the settings thereof. Click on it, and it will display that alert for 7 seconds. You can make it super long, like 30 seconds, and do a preview of it. And now we're going to have to wait for 30 seconds to see the preview. When you hover over it, it'll stay solid and stay up there until you move off of it. In any case, I'm not going to make you go through that. You can also make it solid and then do a preview. And there's no transparency there. In any case, go ahead and choose your flavor if you want it long or short. Set it up, then click OK. So when you get any new email messages, that's how it's going to alert you. You'll get this rectangle that will pull up and say, hey, here's a message, a preview of it. As solid or as transparent preview. Well, it's kind of spooky. You're like, did I see something? In any case, I'm going to leave it as is. When I click cancel, it goes back to its default settings, and then I'll just go ahead and click cancel again, and there we go. The MailTips feature is only available when your Outlook is connected to a Microsoft Exchange server. How do you know if it's connected? Well, down below on the status bar, you can see I'm connected, so I have the feature. And what it does is it provides real-time information about the messages I'm composing and the recipients they intend to reach. So after I type in the email address and before I type in anything else, it'll automatically show up an information bar just above the email address, the to field, about the status of the person that you're sending this email message to. And those statuses can include, like number 1, the recipient's mailbox is full. So if it's full, they're not going to get your emails. So what's the point in continuing on typing an email message unless you want to save it as a draft? Number 2, the number of recipients the message will be delivered to exceeds what can be sent as defined by the system administrator. Number 3, the recipient is using automatic replies, like the out-of-office feature, which is another feature that's only available if you're connected to the Exchange server. And we'll cover that in a later training video. And one of those replies are like, hey, I'm out of the office, I won't be back until 2 weeks from now, in which case you don't want to go ahead and send them an email message when you need a more immediate response. Number 4, the recipient you're sending it to is not within the organization, they're external. Number 5, if you're sending it to a contact group and one of the recipients is external. And number 6, the mailbox quota is about to be exceeded. In other words, messages being composed will put your mailbox quota over the limit and you won't be able to send more messages until you free up some space in your mailbox. Things like that and additional information. So for example, if I go ahead and create a new email message, double click in a blank area, there's my email, and I want to send it to Carrie. Let me come up here and type in K, and there's Carrie, hit the tab key, and oh, there you go, there's the mail tip. Automatic reply. I'm on holiday, back when I feel rested, and a big happy face. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't wait to when you feel rested. I got to have an answer sooner than later, so I can go ahead from this mail tip, say, I'm not going to send it to her, let me try somebody else. And so it'll all pop up there, again, if you're connected to a Microsoft Exchange server. Now, if you want to go ahead and change the settings for the mail tips, you can do it from the email itself. You got the File tab, you can go backstage, or you can just close out, not save it, and come up here in the main window of Outlook, click on File, go backstage, down to Options, select the Mail tab, and then scroll down to, there we go, Mail Tips, manage your mail tip options. For example, you may determine when and how to display the mail tips bar and which mail tips to display. Click on Mail Tips Options, and by default, I think all of them are checked. So you can go through here and say, look, if the recipient is a restricted one, I don't want to see the mail tip, you can uncheck that. And it's being applied to this account. Click on the drop-down arrow. If I had more email accounts set up here, then I can say, okay, maybe it's going to be to that email address, another email account in any case. And then down below the mail tip bar display options, you can have it display automatically when mail tips apply, or display all the time, in which case when you select that, click OK, double click, you can see it's displaying right now, but nothing applies because I don't have an email address where it can look it up and go, okay, they're out of the office, or if there's any mail tips that do apply. So if I type in Carrie, hit the tab key, well, it does apply now. In any case, to go ahead and turn that off, leave my message up, go backstage File, go down to Options, and because I was in the message, it takes me right to the Mail tab, so I can just go ahead and scroll down to the Mail Tips option, and go back to display automatically when mail tips apply. Or if I never want to be bothered by it, never display it. And click OK, and there we go. Back to where we started. Double click, no mail tips, OK, hit the tab key, there. Who knows when she's going to be back. And when she does, she can turn that feature off. So next time when I type in her email address and I don't get the mail tip that there's any issues, well, I'm good to go. Go ahead and finish typing in the email knowing that it'll get to her, at least without any barriers like she's out on holiday. You can organize your messages by assigning them into colored categories. How that works is you can come up here on the Home tab, go to the Tags group, and with one of the messages selected below, come up and click on Categorize, and well, it's not going to have fancy pants and all these names here. The generic names will be like green category, red category, blue category, and so if you want to go ahead and just stick with that, you can select it, and it says in this case, this is the first time you've used the green category. Do you want to rename it? Of course I do. How about to apple picking? I can leave it at that color or click on the drop down arrow and choose another color, like I'll do red. And then the shortcut key, if I want to assign to it, click on the drop down arrow and I could say, well, Control F2 and then say yes. And it says, this is being used by another category. Are you sure you want to reassign it? Yes. And then there you go, apple picking. Hey, well, if you can't see it there, then you may not have the column available. And if you don't have it available, you can watch my training video on how to sort, group, add, and remove columns. And if it is there, but you can't entirely see it, well, just hover over in between the two column headers, and then, well, that's going to shrink it up. You can click and drag it back out to see it. And there you go, apple picking. And when you assign enough categories to each one of these email messages, and you want to be able to group them together by category, like let's go ahead and right-click on this one, left-click on apple picking, and right-click on that one, do also apple picking. Well, you can come up here, right-click on any one of the column headers, and go down to View Settings, and you can do Group By. Click on the drop-down arrow, choose Categories, click OK, and all the apple picking items are together. Well, that's fun. And then let's go ahead and clear that out. Right-click, go back to View Settings, and then Group By. Let's go ahead and clear it all. Click OK. We're back to where we started. And then to go ahead and clear these categories, you can right-click here and you get the option to add more than one category to it, like ghost hunting, and then right-click and also add fancy pants. I mean, you can get quite a few categories assigned to the email message. Of course, you can right-click on it and deselect them one at a time, right-click, or do clear all categories at once, in which case it clears it all out. You can also right-click and go down to all categories, which you can also get to the same window. Let me click Cancel. And by coming up here on the Home tab, going to the Tags group, click on Categorize, and there you go, all categories. Go ahead and open it up. And then from here you can rename any of these, like from Ghost Hunting, click Rename to, let's click over here, Investigation. Let's go ahead and hit Enter. You can rename them. You can also delete them, like, what's Fancy Pants? Let's delete that one. And it says, are you sure deleting this category removes it from your category list but does not affect your previously categorized items? What that means is that if I had Fancy Pants assigned to, well, let's go ahead and do it. Let's say no. And let's assign it to right-click here, Fancy Pants, which, by the way, when you double-click and open up an email message, there's Fancy Pants. You can't miss it, the category. You can right-click on it there and clear the Fancy Pants for all categories if you had additional categories, like let's go ahead and add apple picking. So now I have two. I can right-click on Fancy Pants and deselect that one or clear all of them. In any case, we got the categories assigned there, so we'll leave Fancy Pants there and then go ahead and close out. So now we have two there. Fancy Pants is one of them. So again, if I come up here, click on Categorize to all categories, and I say I'm done with Fancy Pants, and I go ahead and delete it, and it's going to remove the category from the master list, but not from the message that it's currently assigned to. So I say yes, and it says not in the master category, so it's not here. It's just a ghost saying, ooh, I'm just here because it's already been assigned to a message. I'm not going to remove it until you manually do it yourself. So if I click OK, so it looks like it's been removed, right? But if I right-click on it and go down to all categories, it's still there to let you know that it once used to be this category, even though it's not actually showing up in the categories. So that way you got a little bit of tracking, as it were, in case if you accidentally deleted the category and you're like, oh no, it's really important that I had those email messages tagged with that category. So as long as you actually don't clear it from here, you'll still have record of it, even though it's not showing up there. It's just not in the master category list that, let me click Cancel, that when I right-click on another email message and I go down to all categories, you see Fancy Pants isn't there. It's not in the master list. It's just that it's going to be tied to the other email message until I clear it out. And then with all these categories being assigned to these email messages, I can go ahead and group them by category. So if I right-click on the header bar and go down to View Settings, or come up here, click on the View tab, go to the current view, click on View Settings. Then I can go to the Group By and say I want to group them by categories. Alrighty, click OK. OK, there you go. All three grouped by the category apple picking. Oh, that's fun. Ooh, one by Fancy Pants, and that's not in there, but I never cleared it out. So if I right-click on it and I go to all categories and I uncheck Fancy Pants and I click OK, he's no longer part of that separate Fancy Pants group. And then of course I can right click, go to view settings, group by, and clear all, and OK, and OK, and we're back to where we started. And apple picking doesn't have anything to do with that, so right click and we'll just unselect apple picking, or right click and clear all categories. But right click there, ghost hunting, ghost investigation, yeah, that's the category that we can assign to that, as well as right click, ghost hunting. Don't forget, you can also sort by categories. Just click on it and it's sorted. The ghost hunting's together, the apple picking, and all the others that don't have a category assigned to it. Let's go ahead and go back to received so we can go back to where we had it before we sorted by categories. The flag a message feature will put a flag next to your email message over here in the flag column as a reminder that it needs follow-up action. So for example, with this new ghost investigation that's coming up, let's say next Friday, I want to go ahead and do a follow-up action by selecting the flag, that when I see that, when I deselect it over here, that I need to do something, maybe go ahead and follow up or reply or send out an email that says, hey, is everybody on board and ready to go? Have you got your gear? So when it comes past due, because by default selecting it, it's due today. After today, tomorrow, if I didn't clear or mark the flag complete, it'll turn the whole entire line item red. You want to see? Alrighty. Let's go ahead and right click on the flag, and you do get more options. So if you don't want it to be due today, which is the default when you select the flag, you can select tomorrow, this week, next week, no date, custom, whatever you want it to be. And notice how that when it's not due today, or it doesn't have a no date or custom, the flag isn't a bright red, meaning that, hey, we're getting intense, we're right on top of getting it done, as opposed, yeah, tomorrow we're not as intense, we can procrastinate. Hopefully you don't do that. In any case, let's go down to custom. And you've got the start date that you can say, okay, let's start today, and then choose a date, and then it's due. Click on the drop-down arrow, maybe next Friday. But instead, so I can show you that it turns the entire line item red when it goes past due, I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow for the start date and go to yesterday, as well as the due date to yesterday. Click okie dokie, and oh my goodness, you see how angry it gets when you don't complete it? It goes red. Or it's blushing because it's embarrassed that you didn't complete the task. In any case, there you go. It lets you know now that it's past due, where yesterday you had all day to do it. So you can come over here and either right click on it and say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and customize this so we can set a later date instead of like doing it tomorrow, maybe a specific date in the custom window. Or if it actually has been completed by now, just mark it complete. You get the green check mark. And if that bothers you, you can also right click on it and just say, okay, let's just clear it out altogether. Now the other option you get when you right click to either add a flag or to do a custom flag, you can add a reminder. When you click on it, it opens up the custom window, so you could have selected the custom from the drop down list there. In any case, you can flag to follow up, or you can say flag to, well, for FYI, or forward it on to somebody else, or to reply to this email message. It's your flavor. Choose whatever. I'm going to leave it as follow-up. And then the start date, today, the due date. Well, to see the reminder, what it looks like when it comes due, you have to have Outlook open. And with it open, when it gets to that time, it'll open up a window and it'll give a loud bong. Well, a loud one if you have your speakers cranked. In any case, let's keep it due today. And down below, the clock says 6:38. If I come up here and I change it to 6:39, and I'm quick enough and I hit enter, the moment it turns 6:39, that is, if I have Outlook open, it'll open up that window and it will give me a loud bong. Oh, there you go. There's my bong. Okay. So new ghost investigation, it's due. I can snooze it and say, well, I'm not ready for it now. It's right in the way. Get out of here. Of course, you can minimize that down to the taskbar, but then click on it to restore it. Or click on the drop-down arrow and say, give me a day. And then click snooze, and it will hide it. And then a day later, it will pop back open. That is when you have Outlook open. Let me click off of it. If you got more than one that's reminding you, you can dismiss all, but since I just have the one here, well, you can double click on it to open it up as a reminder. Oh, it's this message, new ghost investigation. I better go ahead and follow up. And you can see here the information bar, follow up, start by Saturday, February 24th, due by Saturday, February 24th. The reminder is Saturday, February 24th at 6:39 p.m. So the information was follow-up as opposed to what other settings that were available, which, by the way, with the message open, you can come over here in the tags group and hey, it's right there, follow-up. Click on the drop-down arrow and go ahead and do custom and make your changes and say, okay, instead of follow-up, I want to do an FYI or whatever you want to select, click okie dokie, and then it changes the information here. Oh, and it pops back open again. Okay, fine, let me minimize that for your information instead of follow-up. Great, let's go ahead and close out. Restore that back open. And if we're like, okay, that's fine, I don't want to snooze it, let me just dismiss it, and it's gone. So when I come over here, the flag is still there. When I right click on it and go down to custom, the reminder is no longer checked. It won't pop back open. And from here, I can also clear the flag, click on it, and it's gone. And you can also come up here on the Home tab to the Tags group with this message selected and do follow-up and then choose like today. Now, when you set the flag, if you don't have a pop-up reminder and you're not in the inbox, there are other places that you can be in that will show you what's coming up. As you recall in an earlier training video, we had the ToDo Bar. Remember that? Of course you do. Come up here, click on the View tab, go to the Layout group, and there's ToDo. Click on it, and it's for the tasks. Select it, pops open, and there we go. New Ghost Investigation. There's the task that's due today. And then later on, apple picking. Oh, what's that about? Well, you can see when I hover over it, in the pop-up it says the reminder time. Oh, it disappeared. I'm not fast enough. Hover back over it. Is Saturday, September 1st, 2018. Oh, that's several months out. I'm not worried about that. Of course, you can double click on it, make some notes, change it, but there you go. Saturday, September the 1st, 2018. Close out. So there you go. If you had that open, you know that it's coming due today. So you can view it that way, or let's go ahead and close out of it. You can go to your task folder, and in the task folder you have your to-do list and your actual tasks. They're separate. And the follow-up flag is the to-do list. It's not going to be displayed as a task, and we'll talk about tasks in a later training video. And you can see apple picking was the one that we just looked at. That's coming up September the 1st, 2018. But back in the to-do list, the follow-up is the new Ghost Investigation, which again is not here in the task. It's a follow-up, so it's the to-do. So you can come in here, double-click, open it up there, or you can see that the red flag is showing you that, oh, it's due. When it's red like that, it's burning to be done today. And if it's done, while you're here, just right-click on it and mark it complete. And it's disappeared from your to-do list. Oh, that's fun. As well as when you come up here, click on the View tab and go to the ToDo Bar, to the tasks. Only have apple picking. Phew, good. Let's close out of here. Let's go back to our mail folder to see ghost hunting. Green check. It's done. The Quick Steps feature will take common tasks that require a lot of actions and combine them into a single click. Like you can use one of these pre-built ones. When you hover over it, in the pop-up below, it says when you click on this, it'll forward the selected email to your manager. Now, Outlook doesn't know who your manager is. You'll have to tweak it, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But let's go ahead and click on the More button, because I want to create one from scratch. So click on Create New, and oh, look at that generic text. How very ordinary. My quick step. Let's go ahead and delete that, because what I want this quick step to do is when I click on it, to change the selected item, or in this case the email, from normal importance, because that's the default, to high importance. So let's call this our high importante quick step. And the default icon is a lightning bolt. You can see in the pop-up, click here to change it. So click here, and oh, look at all these icons you can choose from. And I could go with the exclamation point, which is the one that represents high importance, but I can choose whatever I want. Like I'm happy, so I'll choose the happy face. And click OK, and oh, he's happy. And then down below, choose an action. So click on the drop-down arrow, and all these actions are grouped. So you got one for filing, like move or copy or delete a message. And then for changing status, categories, well, I'll let you peruse through here. Let me choose one like, how about forward? When I select that, it'll just be like if I came up here and clicked on the forward button. So it doesn't make sense for me just to have a quick step that already does what I already have here on the ribbon. So I can come down here and click on Show Options. So in addition to having it set up to forward, I can actually type in an email address so it always forwards it on to a specific person or group of people. And then down below, it's got the code to bring over the subject from the original message, and I can type in something else that says, please look at this, or consider, or get back with me on this. Anything else that I want to add to the subject, that will go out every time I click on this quick step. And then if I want to flag it and say, look, it's got to be due today, or it's got to be due tomorrow, and the importance, which I'll set up in just a minute, of high importance. There's normal and there's low. And then any additional text when you forward this message on to whoever you're forwarding it to. And then if you made a mistake, you're like, I didn't mean to do this. You can go ahead and click on the delete button and go ahead and click on add action. And then so when you add an action, like let's click on the drop down arrow and we want to set the importance. And the default's high, but if it was supposed to be like normal or low, then go ahead and change that. So after it sets the action as being high, you can add another one saying, okay, after you click on add action, then you'll have to click on the drop down arrow to choose the action and say, then go ahead and move this to a folder. And then you can choose a folder that you could create over here, which we haven't covered yet, and say this is my muy importante folder or high importance folder, whatever you want to set that up for. So it's pretty cool that the amount of help you can get with a single click. And I want to keep it simple and delete that. And down below, before I click finish, you can choose a shortcut key. Actually, it would be keys. Let me click on the arrow because you can choose one of these like Control-Shift-F1. Well, that's too many fingers for me, so I'm good not choosing a shortcut key. Then there's the tooltip text. This text will show up when the mouse hovers over the quick steps. So if high importance isn't key enough that you'll remember that, and then if you need a reminder, type in something that's more detailed. This will set the selected message as being of high importance, must take action ASAP as soon as possible. We good to go? Alrighty, click finish and there's my happy face. Hover over it. There you go. There's the pop-up ASAP. So when I'm ready, go ahead and, well, I got my message selected, so it'll apply to that. And you'll see over here in the column for importance that when I click on it, it marks it as being high. Great. Now how do I remove it? Well, I don't have one to remove it, so if I want to undo that, I don't get the undo option. I could double click to open up the message, and on the message tab, expand the tags group, and there it's high, select normal, close out, be sure to save it, and the important marker there, the exclamation point, has been removed. Now, if you want to go ahead and make some changes to it, you can right click on it and edit it, select edit, make your changes, add additional actions, delete them, click save when you're done. Click cancel. Right click on it again, see what other options we got, like you can duplicate it. So I suppose if you had maybe 10 actions in this one and you want to create another one that's very similar to that one, maybe less one action, instead of adding all those actions again, just go ahead and duplicate it and remove the one action. You can also delete it. You can do a new quick step. You don't have to click on the more button to create a new one. You can manage the quick steps, which we'll cover in just a minute. You can even add this gallery to the quick access toolbar. So the gallery means not this particular quick step, but the entire gallery, what you see here. So when I click on that, the lightning bolt, click on that, and there you go. So that way you don't have to be on the home tab. If you're on the folder and you're like, oh, I got to come back up here, click on the home tab to access the quick step. When a lot of the work I do is on the folder tab, no, just stay on the folder tab and click on this and then choose your quick step. So let me go ahead and right click on it and remove that from the quick access toolbar. Go back to the home tab. And then, like I said, you can right click and manage the quick steps. Now when it comes to managing, that includes the pre-built ones plus the one that we created, which allows you within this window to edit it, duplicate it, delete it, as you saw when we right clicked on it. You can also click cancel and click on the more button and manage your quick steps. Brings up the same window. And then you can also click on new and create a new quick step, like a new move to folder or a custom one as we did. You can also move these around, so if your high importance, because you can only see 3 here, is not one of the top ones you want to use, then go ahead and select it and move it down. In fact, the move to is the one that I probably won't be using here, but the to manager, let's move that up. Now let's go ahead and take one of these pre-built ones. As you can see over here, it'll forward the selected email to your manager, and click on edit, and then say, well, it's not to my manager, it's to the big cheese, the head honcho. In any case, go ahead and choose whatever you like. You can, of course, change the icon. I'm not going to do that. And then forward it to, well, who's the big cheese? Type in their name, Wilberforce, Humphreys, select it, and there you go. Now you can leave it as is, or you can show additional options. And as I went over, type in any extra text in the subject. So every time you click on this quick step, it forwards it on to Mr. Humphreys, the big cheese, with some additional text that always says, please look over this pronto. And the flag, the importance, any additional text that you want to be able to add to it. You can also add carbon copy or blind carbon copy to somebody. I'm going to hide that option and just leave it as is, keep it simple, but you can expand it and add whatever option you want. And then down below, forwards the selected email to your manager. I'm good. Click Save, click OK. So there's the big cheese. Apple picking, he loves apples. Let's go ahead and click on that, and boom, automatically copies over the text in the subject and the body of the message from the original message, and adds Mr. Humphrey's email address to it. And I can go ahead and type in any additional text that I want, click on Send, and away it goes. So that way, let me close out. I don't have to come up here with it selected, click on Forward, and then type in his email address. Oh, I just saved a lot of time, didn't I? Cool. Close out of that. We won't save the message. And if you like, last but not least, well, you can click on the expandable dialog box button, and it brings up the same window. So there's like 3 ways at least to get to this window that you can reset to the defaults. When you click on that, it resets everything. So what used to be called to the manager, it'll reset that, no longer be big cheese, as well as Mr. Humphrey's email address won't be a part of that, and high importance will be gone as well. So reset, are you sure? Yes, and we're back to where we started. And you can see back to move to manager, team email. Everything's been reset. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.